Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another Down the Donut Hole podcast on a Monday, kind of dreary.
Dreary, rainy.
Yeah. I guess that's, typical with Mondays. I don't know. I mean, they have a bad rap, that's for sure.
Well, not really. Do you know that Mondays are the day that most people decide that they will finally get their butt up off the couch and head to the gym? So it's a day that people start projects, whether it's a big home improvement project or cleaning out closets or something you've been putting off. Most people can justify waiting through the weekend. They give themselves that. And then they say, Monday, I will definitely begin.
So is it kind of like New Year's Day or something?
Yeah.
Every week you have a New Year's Day every week.
It's like a reset day. However, that being said, most people, if you're going to be late to work or school or somewhere you're supposed to be, Monday is the most likely day that you're going to be late. You're just not going to be able to be on time.
Because you blew yourself out over the weekend.
I think that's it. I think that if you are one of those lucky people who doesn't have to show up to some sort of a job on the weekend, I think you sort of drift into that mode a little bit. And it stays with you, and you have a really hard time kind of overriding a slower pace on Mondays. And so you get off the block a lot less
That was always a very common response to, how are you? You'll say, it's a Monday. Kind of like that, in that same voice.
Yeah, it's a Monday. And there's a common feeling, isn't there? You might be saying that to somebody that you don't know very well, that you don't, interact with on anything but, the most formal level. But if you say that to people, this look comes across their face and they just instantly have something in common with you.
Yeah, like everybody.
Like everybody.
I said that once, way back many years ago when I was on the radio. I'm not sure why it was a Monday, and it was kind of dreary like it is now.
Uh-huh.
And it happened to be the 13th day of that month.
Oh, wow.
So I'm thinking, you know what? That's got to be more unlucky than Friday the 13th, because everybody hates Mondays.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Mondays are useful for us in terms of planning and that sort of thing, but everybody does hate getting back to business and getting back into the rat race of things. And do you remember when you were a kid, those last weeks of school, this time of year, May, early June, and you were counting down the time until you could go on holiday? And do you remember how hard those Mondays were, especially if the good weather over the weekend had been, fine and you could go out and play and do things? Then getting back in your school clothes and picking up your book bag and heading back to school was doubly hard. At least it was for me.
Oh, yeah. No question. Back to the grind sort of thing.
Yeah. I think the time definitely goes by differently when you're in your senior years than when you are young. I remember around Christmas, time would really, really slow down because you were so looking forward to Christmas and, all the magic associated with that. And as I just said, also at the end of the year when you were looking forward to getting out of school for summer, time would just slow down. Or any time there was a little vacation or a break from school, that last week would just drag. But when you're a senior citizen, all the weeks go by so quickly, don't they? Have you noticed that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're talking about Monday, and it seems like, oh, yeah, another Monday, blah, blah, blah. But this will be done, and we'll be talking on Friday and saying, wow, did this week go by quickly or what? Yeah. It's crazy.
That's true. Oh, of course, in French, it's lundi. It's associated with the moon, and because you're a folklorist.
Yeah. Day of the moon. I think it comes from a Viking word, which I won't pretend to be able to say. But very interesting. Very interesting. And I think, too, that there's so much with Mondays. We talk about being late, but also, more people have heart attacks on Mondays than any other day.
Don't. Just kidding.
Don't. And also, emergency rooms are usually busier on a Monday. I would have thought Friday because people kind of at the end of the week, they want to go nuts and kind of just let their hair down.
Yeah, it's the origin of the word lunatic for that reason.
It may be.
It is.
Is it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. Do they think it's associated with lunar activity, really? Or?
Yeah. Yep. The pole of the moon, so to speak.
Well, also, I would think that in the dark of the moon, when it's harder to see in the overnight hours, that your potential activities would be much more difficult to pull off because you wouldn't have such clear vision. But in a full moon, when things are lit up pretty well and you can almost see as well as during the day, I would think that a lot more criminal activity would be going on, or illicit is maybe a better word, maybe not flat out criminal, but stuff people shouldn't get up to. Maybe they do more when they can see better.
Or you have the double whammy maybe when there is a full moon on a Monday.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Do you remember in Scotland when we would be working on a project? We were there for an extended period of time, a few years. And we were working on a project, and you would hire a contractor to come in and give you a quote, and assuming that it sounded good and you decided to move forward with whatever that was, the contractors would always say that they were going to start first week, quote,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
First week.
We thought that meant the closest Monday.
But we were wrong about that. If you allowed them to expound on that, it probably meant more accurately, the first week I have a chance to get around to this job.
Yeah, we figured that out after a while. Eventually, we figured it out.
Because you'd be arranging your schedule to accommodate some sort of project. And I'd be looking forward to it and, just blocking out time or clearing space for whatever had to happen. And then the contractor wouldn't show up. And I always felt kind of upset about that, especially in the beginning before I understood the term first week. It does not mean the first day of the week. It means first week that I can get to you, or first week that I darn well please, is probably a more accurate translation for some of them. But I understand better now with contractors, and I certainly recall your work where sometimes the time frame of a job isn't in your control. You're really kind of at the mercy of how the flow of it goes, where if you rip stuff up and then you find out that the job you thought you were going to do is a lot more involved than that there's hidden damage that you've got to rectify before you can proceed to the job you quoted, mm-hmm. or the weather goes bad in the case of a lot of your work when you were doing...
you don't get the parts or supplies that you need to do the job.
Or part of your team doesn't show up. If it happens to be a Monday and they call in sick, which is also the number one day of the week that people call in sick. I thought it was Friday, but I think it's Monday. It's those 2 days probably are pretty tied for when people call in, because on either side of a weekend, that's pretty attractive if you can sling 4, consecutive days together. That'll give you at least 2 that you can play, and then 2 travel days or 2 recovery days or something like that. That works out really well for people. So how about after the Super Bowl, which is usually played on a Sunday in February, there's a growing movement that people want the following Monday off. They want it to be a national holiday so they can have their party and their fun on Super Bowl Sunday and then have a day to recover. Which
I don't know.
You're not a big football fan.
No. Mm-mm.
But You are a fan of parties. You like parties and stuff. So
yeah, that's true.
If you separate yourself from the reason for the party and just enjoy the party for the party's sake, then having that day off would be extra special good, I would think, for everybody, whether you're a football fan or not.
Maybe, yeah.
I know some of the other soccer championships, people also hope for the following Monday off. So that's good. People also start books.
As long as everybody gets it off, even if they're not a sports fan.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, there'd be no way to, keep that just for the fans, I wouldn't think. Because fans have families and not everybody's keen on it. How about Cyber Monday? Have you ever bought anything on Cyber Monday, which is the Monday after Thanksgiving in the States?
It's like all those other ones now. It's like they say, like Black Friday, right? It's like people have sales called that all year round now. So it's not like, I gotta do it on this particular Monday, or I want to have another chance.
I have never purchased anything on any one of those days. No, I take that back. I think you and I went to a mall one time on Black Friday, but I've never ordered anything on Cyber Monday. I just haven't. I'm not sure why. It's not a crusade.
I might have, possibly, but...
Are the deals significantly better to make it worth kind of checking out what they got on offer for that day?
I guess, they'll throw some stuff out there that's really very much reduced, but I think it's, for the most part, no, they're not that much better, I don't think.
I never got that, and I never got the stampedes for Black Friday.
Yeah, Walmart.
Do you remember those gals? We were camping or something one time, and they were telling us about how they like to get all drunked up and then go Black Friday shopping.
Oh, that's scary.
It is kind of scary.
That's how you get all the punch-ups and the physical altercations.
Well, they weren't shying away from that. That was part of the attraction, to get, to lower your...
Especially true, the old adage is, do not get between a woman and shopping.
You've been good.
Especially when they're drunk.
Yeah, but you can't tell. I think you should think that. After they told me that in great length about all of their adventures over many years, I just sat there taking it in, and I was in awe of their ability to shop inebriated, and how they weren't afraid that their inhibitions would be so depressed that they would pull out that credit card and buy stupid stuff. Because I think return policies, aren't they different after Cyber Monday or Black Friday than normal? Aren't they more strict about what you can restock?
Don't know. Yeah, it's not. I like you said, I think we only braved that once, and I think it was a Walmart, actually.
I think it was it a whole mall or just a Walmart?
Just a Walmart, I think.
That's not very exciting, nor is it adventurous, nor is it stuff to talk about. But those gals, wow, they were pushing each other around in shopping carts. And I think there was a story of how they got locked out of their car because in their drunken haste to deposit a bunch of shopping in the trunk of the car, they somehow locked their keys in there. And it would have been a great movie, Black Friday, wouldn't it? And it was all the gals. I think there were like 3 sisters and a couple of their friends from childhood. Yeah, that would be the thing. Forget the guys. Forget the romance. Let's focus on the hall.
You're a bit guilty of that yourself, though. You're more than happy to elbow contenders at the book sale.
I always joke about that, but no, I would never do that, actually. But I have been elbowed. I have been on the receiving end of that many times. There's a big book sale in Gainesville, Florida, and it is spectacular. Used books. And if you go the first day, it's kind of a bit of a scramble because the good stuff, there's a lot of good stuff that first day. You're going to pay more, but all the money goes to the Friends of the Library there And I understand that over the course of the sale, which runs from Friday night for the Friends of the Library until Wednesday, I believe, that all the money that they take in goes for the library, which is not just a single edifice like it used to be. It's a library service, kind of an area-wide thing where people can borrow books and music and prints, like art prints and things like that. So it's a big, big deal. But the aisles are so narrow. The place is big. I think it used to be a department store. And they, they have it absolutely chocked with books, thousands of books of every description in there. And a lot of them are in really great shape. And so most of them are in really great shape. And, it's a college town with the University of Florida there, and there's a couple other colleges in the area. So it's a bookish place, which is also attractive to me.
So the sale includes a Monday. I wonder if they get crazier then. I don't think we've ever been there on a Monday.
Mm-mm. I go on Saturday, which is the first day for the general public, and you stand in line for a long time to get in there. And they let in X number of people at a time, and then when people start coming out, then they let in some more. But you're standing out there, and it's almost a good idea. I always wear a hat, but next time I think I'm going to bring an umbrella.
I thought you were going to say body armor.
No. I try to avoid that kind of thing. Plus, I'm always over by the folklore. I like to look over there. I love cookbooks, too, especially the ones associated with ethnic cooking and that sort of thing, because a lot of them, and my favorite ones are the ones that include lore about the place and about why that particular recipe fits into special celebrations or combinations of food that are significant culturally. I love those, and especially the ones that have a lot of pictures. I know that sounds really childlike, but I love books with lots of pictures.
And you want to make sure that they're in metric. I know that you prefer that.
What?
Metric measure in the recipe?
No, I do not appreciate that. I can do it, but it's for me, it's not automatic or natural. I have to really kind of focus. I recently, one of the books that I had gotten at one of those book sales, I think on the last day, because there's books that I will buy on the last day that I wouldn't pay full price for on Saturday or Sunday, but on a Tuesday or a Wednesday as the sale's concluding, you can buy them for 10 cents or 20 cents I think on Tuesday, 10 cents on the final Wednesday. And so there's books that I possess that I would not have purchased at full price on a Saturday or Sunday. But the other day I was thumbing through one, which I happen to have here actually, that I must have brought it here when they were letting people have, less expensive luggage on airlines. Now I would never bring a book that big. But it's here.
They're heavy. I think I might have mentioned this in a previous podcast. I don't know. But I was given a survey for something. I don't remember what it was about. But one of the questions was, what kind of books do you enjoy? And my smart-ass answer was the ones that have lightweight paper, because books are freaking heavy.
Oh, boo-hoo.
They really are.
Boo-hoo. Some boys go to the gym. You can have to book. There's nothing
Especially
wrong with you.
I'm hauling that big pile of books that you get.
I know,
I'll come out with one or two, and you've got boxes full of them.
He does. Our anniversary isn't far from that book sale, and so sometimes if we don't get to go do anything for our anniversary, then I call that as my our anniversary celebration.
Even if
or
we
Mother's
do, you
Day.
still call it in.
I call it in. Usually if I'm very happy about our haul from the book sale, I try to cook something extra nice because you were awfully good about helping me.
Haul is the right word.
It is haul. It is absolutely haul because I go home with a lot of books. And my library is much, much better because of it. So that, anyway, I started to tell you, speaking of things that have been useful, in that big book that I can't imagine how or why I carried that here, I found the gas mark conversions. The stove that is in this cottage that we're in is very old, and it's an apartment-sized thing. And the temperature gauge for the oven is just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think it's up to 10 or 9 or something like that. And I finally found in that book that I carried here what those numbers are equivalent to. So I have the gas mark.
Yeah, you've seen that before
conversion
in Scotland also.
Yeah, but I didn't. I think there were centigrade or Celsius.
Some of them were, yeah, but I think that
I don't think I ever had one
in Europe,
that didn't
generally,
have.
I think that that's common.
Yeah. We have to figure, unlikely that it's going to be any higher than 450, maybe 475, 500 tops. And so if you work backwards and you figure, okay, it's probably, 50 degrees different or 25 degrees different between each of those marks. Anyway, I wrote them down and put them over there. So now I have those.
So is that what it was, like from 300 to 500 or something like that?
No, it goes from less than 100, like just warm. But I'm afraid of that stove because you have to light it with a match. And what I do, I'm such a chicken. I take that, I light one match, and I set a second match next to it. And then there's a little hole on the floor of the oven. And so I set both matches, the burning one and the one next to it, and they're really close. I put them right close together. Then I close the door, and then I turn on the gas. And then you see, farouche, and it lights. And then I feel a lot safer. I don't even stand near it. Because I'm afraid of it.
Throw a match in there and run? Or what
No, I set it in there carefully with its partner match, and then I close the door, and then I put on the gas and wait a couple minutes. In those seconds when they're ticking by, they really drag. Talk about senior citizen time and little kid time around Christmas. Those seconds before that gas ignites, it's really long, and I am always thinking, oh gosh, And then if it doesn't, for some reason, sometimes it puffs the match out, and then I have to wait a couple minutes before I open the door because I figure I've put a lot of gas in there that isn't burned off, and then I also wait to light another match because I don't want to strike a match and have it explode into flame or something inside that chamber. So I wait and let it clear.
Adventure cooking.
Yeah. Well, nowadays, they're not recommending that people have gas stoves anymore.
I wonder why.
It's one thing outside, I think, if you have one of those gas grills for your grilling, but they don't think it's a good idea, and they do think it affects air quality, which can affect health. So... But I'm not about to change.
Maybe they don't want you to use propane for some other reason.
No, but it is cool. It is cool. And it's even more cool than having a propane stove, an old one like that, is to have the propane refrigerator.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's cool.
It really is.
That's some sort of magic thing. And this is really old, too. This is not something recent. And you can still get them for RVs and things.
I think this is from the 70s, the early 70s.
Maybe, yeah. Oh, at least.
Because last year it was acting up, and we were talking about getting rid of it. And this is a good size one. Now, the one I have at home, the refrigerator I have at our house, which is also a cottage, is one of those big, dorm type ones. It's bigger than, it's about the size of 2 of those cube fridges. And it's fake stainless steel on the outside, and it works fine. That's all the 2 of us need because we like to travel, and so we're not always in any one place. So it doesn't make sense for us to buy great big appliances when we're not there, and those little ones, I can just empty it before we go, unplug it, and then when I get back, it takes a very short time to cool off again. This one is a little bit finicky. And last time we had people joining us for a few days, and the refrigerator decided to act up and was putting out carbon monoxide into the cottage. And so we could run it for a little while until it started spewing that and get the interior cooled off. Then we'd have to shut it down. So we would have some cooling for a while. And I have a bunch of those blue freezer bricks. And so we'd freeze those quick and then move cold things into a cooler. So basically, we were just putting it up, especially if we were going to be outside in the afternoon or away for the day. We'd put it on, get it cool, then come home, air the place out, take the cooler bricks, put them in a cooler and that. And then I kept moving the refrigerator forward and using like little skinny wires, like a bread twister that you strip the plastic off. And I was using those to clean out these little tubes in the back. And I don't know what I'm doing, But the truth is, we're in France. I wouldn't know who to call, especially for a refrigerator that's as old as that one. So we did our best. And there were times where it ran pretty well, didn't it? We didn't even notice a problem. And then all of a sudden...
Yeah, I'm not that comfortable continuing this line of discussion because it's been working fantastically.
Yes.
So maybe we shouldn't taunt it.
Yeah, just shut up because it can hear us. I was going to take a walk downtown today. It's a mile down, mile back up. A little more than a mile, about a mile and a half each way. And I was going to do that today, but since it's raining and it's just one of those days where you can't be sure that you'd be able to get down there and back without it really raining on you. So I've decided just tuck in for today. One more day won't matter. And so, and I am generally feeling better. There were a lot of days, even after my voice came back, that I just did not feel well enough to do any big treks anywhere. And I think if you feel yourself kind of feeling that way, set a limit for it. Say, okay, I'm going to give myself another few days here and try to get back in the swing of things. And each day, make yourself do a little more. I did some laundry. I did a bunch of little things over the weekend, kind of to get myself back active again, because I just really wasn't feeling it.
Good meditation time.
It is.
Instead of ruminate, we'll meditate.
Yeah. Yeah, today it's nice and dreary. And I say nice and dreary because that's one of the things I think especially that you have to learn.
You're like your favorite weather girl on TV.
Oh, yeah.
Nice and, it wouldn't matter what the weather was. She would always say nice and...
Yeah, nice and this, nice and that, nice and cold, nice and hot.
She'd say it's nice and hot. Or if it's cool, nice and cool. That's a very positive outlook, I think.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And I'm wondering if she didn't creep into my consciousness because I do say that pretty regularly. But it reflects how I actually feel about things, because when you're traveling, you might as well figure out a few things that you can do if the weather doesn't cooperate with your outdoor adventures. And just be happy. Tuck in with a book, write in your journal. For me.
Oh, that is something Mondays are good for. What was that song? It was a popular song. Rainy days and Mondays always get me down.
Yeah.
Who did that? Was that Karen Carpenter? Maybe.
Yeah, I think so. She had such a beautiful voice.
She did, yeah. I had a bit of a crush on her back then.
Did you?
Mm-hmm.
Aww.
Even though it was the music was a little soft for my taste, but Yeah,
I'm surprised about that. You're kind of a rock guy, kind of a toothy rock guy.
No, but you're right. I appreciated her voice was very clear and very strong. Yeah. And anyway, I think that's who did that song.
I think you're right. I, usually travel with a book. And however, it takes up space. And now that they want you to have every single thing under the seat in front of you, it's less attractive to bring a book. But the problem is if you're reading like on a tablet or something like that, if you're doing what we're doing, you're sucking down your battery the whole time. And if you are recharging with solar, a day like today is not very conducive to that. And so You have to weigh up whether it's worth carrying an old-fashioned paper book or whether you want to hammer your battery a lot quicker by reading.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you didn't have the option before the internet, and a lot of the people who hiked would take a travel guide with them and all that, but some of them were quite fat. If you're going to do, several different areas or even different countries and all that on your trip, then it's, it takes up a lot of space. It weighs something, even a paperback. And so one of the old tricks back then was that once you visited one of the places that you were interested in, you were done with that. You're not going back there for a while. You'd rip out that section of the book. So the idea being that as your trip progressed, you would have a lighter and lighter and less fat book.
All the more space for souvenirs. It hurts my heart to think about people tearing pages out. I'll tell you something else that hurts my heart terribly is every now and then you see these book illustrations from vintage books that are for sale, just the illustrations, which makes you know that somebody ripped that book apart to get those illustrations out to sell them individually, which I'm sure they make way more money selling the illustrations like that a la carte than if they were trying to sell the whole book, because a lot of them come from books that, they don't have an appeal these days. Maybe someday in the future, but at the moment they are valueless. In fact, Dave, did you know that they sell books by the foot?
No.
Yes. Books that have nice old bindings, I've seen them for sale because I'm always looking at books online, on Abe and, places like that. And there are places that advertise that you can buy books with nice-looking bindings by the foot. And
that's an interesting concept. That might be a way to curtail some of your massive numbers of books. And when you go to so like you say, okay, books by the foot, you only have 2 feet, so you can only buy 2 books. How about that?
What do you mean 2 feet? Like my 2 feet?
Yeah.
My appendages?
You said by the foot, so you only have 2.
No, I'm talking about...
That means you can only buy 2 books.
No, I am talking about a measure.
Oh, okay.
20, so in 12-inch increments. So you can buy as many books like that as would fit in 12 inches, which a lot of books are, a couple inches. So you could probably get 6, maybe 7 if a couple of them were skinny. Or
the bag day concept.
Oh, I love bag days. I do. Those days, I'll usually try for the ones that I'm not 100% sure of. In those, like the paperback ones, some of those have cute little illustrations that you can, if the book is in bad shape or marginal shape. None of them that I've encountered at that big sale in Gainesville are what I would say are in bad shape. They, some are used, definitely the children's books. And I'm very interested in children's folklore. If you haven't before, if you're at a book sale or something, go over to the kids section and start looking for some of the cultural storybooks and things like that. For me, again, the pictures are so inspiring because a lot of the folkloric stories are told over and over again. Some of them are kind of common in between cultures, but when you see how they struck the fancy of the artist or the illustrator or a writer illustrator, wherever, I like it when it's the same person because sometimes the way it's written really inspires that person to produce some really cool art. And so I love that. And some of them appeal to me more than others, but I'm always interested in that. And I believe that children, the more you introduce them to world literature in terms of folklore, they respond very well to that. These days, again, we've talked before, kids have a much, much shorter attention span for the spoken word. They have a very hard time listening for any period of time. But they are used to, scrolling and doing those kinds of things on their tablets and phones and other devices like that. But I think it's well worth trying to keep children's attention. And by showing them the artwork associated with stories that they may be familiar with from having heard before, or maybe encountered another artist's work that's associated with that sort of thing. Certainly Disney. A lot of the Disney stories they're based on, folklore from other nations. And so a lot of kids have sort of a pop culture view of that. But if you can show them artwork associated with a not Disney version of those stories, it really, really resonates with them. And then I think it's a great idea to ask them, how would you draw a scene from that story? Whether it's Pinocchio or one of the princess stories, Cinderella, something like that that's pretty ubiquitous that people kind of know. I think it's a great starting place for teaching children to listen and inspiring their willingness to venture out with their own artistic expressions. So, pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely.
And Mondays are always a good day to start a new art project.
Oh, what did you start today then? You're writing. Yeah,
I'm working on a project that I started a long time ago that I brought with me because I have a lot of quiet time in places like this, which is one of the attractive things for me. I don't always need the big hubbub. I love going to cities. I love trekking around, but I also like the quiet time, just being in a place. So that for me has a lot of allure. So, even like I say, a day like today, it's kind of nice to cozy up. This is
that's true. Mondays are good for that. Definitely.
They really are. Like I say, I was going to do more today, but I talked myself right out of it with the weather. I did bake this morning, and it smelled nice. The house is kind of
I'm sad I missed that.
Dim.
I didn't miss eating it, but I did miss the
smell,
the process, and the smell. Yeah. Yeah.
Now that I know what the gas marks translate to, I'm a lot more adventurous because before it was anybody's guess.
What is 5? What temperature is 5?
It's probably like 325, something like that.
Okay, so you did do your homework. That's good.
Well, I have it written down over there. I'm not going to commit that to memory. I have so many important things floating around in this noggin that I don't want to stress it on you with something I wouldn't be using every day, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, that makes sense, I guess.
You're giving me a look that's kind of, he's rolling his eyes. So, as if to say, oh, brother, she's got an excuse for everything.
Mm-hmm. But, true.
Yeah. I like new beginnings. I like projects like that. And I love, with kids especially, to see the kinds of things that they come up with. And especially, I like recycled things. I like to have, I'm a great one for, especially if I know I'm going to be with my grandkids, I like to save things. Tissue rolls, paper towel rolls. I even save the lids off.
But especially your massive collection of wine boxes.
Yes. Oh, yes. I love them. When I was doing a lot of puppetry, there was a museum in a town that I was in quite often, and I used to put on puppet shows there in association with any of the festivals that they had. They do a lot of world festivals, observances of world festivals and things like that. And in old world tradition, puppets were always part of that, so I would do that. And so I was very good about saving my wine boxes because those could be cut up and made into set pieces. And I know I had these wonderful, I still have them, but not with me, of course. I had some of the German hand puppets, and they're so appealing to me because the faces, the expressions are so interesting and perfect.
Creepy. The other word is creepy.
Yeah, some people think creepy. I'm not one of those. Anyway, we did one of Little Red Riding Hood. And of course, everybody remembers the scene with the grandmother. And I had a series. There were 2 wine boxes of the same type for the bottom, and I cut doors into the front, and I cut the back open so that I could slip my hand in behind. And then I had another wine box up at the top to look like a window. And so the woodcutter came by, and he could look through that window in the top. And then, of course, we see the wolf in a bed also made of wine boxes. I was very diligent in the acquisition phase of that.
And you had one that
and
was
you
open
helped.
With a straw in it, so you could wet your whistle.
No, not at all.
In fact, the entire puppet theater was made out of wine boxes.
No, but a lot of it was.
And you had enough of them to build a whole addition
That's because
to the house.
I didn't throw them away over a long period of time. Anyway, you helped, and don't sit there and pretend that you're some kind of teetotaler and that I'm lushing around in the back getting
no, I sample.
You
curate.
sample. You sure do sample. Anyway, we had the wolf puppet, of course, in the bed, and we had Little Red Riding Hood puppet standing there. I made them all new dresses, longer ones that would cover my arm, my forearm, all the way to my elbow, and that looked better as far as I was concerned. Anyway, the end of the story, the woodcutter steps in, he rounds up the wolf, and then the grandmother puppet, pops out of the lower wine boxes, which I taped 2 together with duct tape. So under the lights, on the puppet stage, it looked like they were painted white, but they weren't. They were, it was just white duct tape. And then the doors, when they popped open, and then grandmother could pop her head out, they were superb. And the thing about wine boxes that's better than most boxes for something like that is they're really quite sturdy because they have to be able to protect the wine bladder inside. And that's an important thing, Dave. That's very important.
You would know.
Yes, it has to be good quality cardboard.
Kept going down to the wine shop to see if they would change their mind about just selling you the box. And of course, they never would. So you said, I guess I'm going to have to buy the box.
No. I would never do that because I would like to support those wineries that are putting out a product that is useful even after the original product is gone. So never let it be said that I didn't support those businesses, because I have, and I will. Anyway, it worked out great. Think about out of the box. Also, I like the duct tape covering for them.
Gosh, we should have thought about that for an alternative name to this podcast.
Well,
out of the wine box.
Instead of down the donut hole?
Yeah.
Hey, no, really. You can, if you have let's say you run a pub or a bar or a restaurant and you have good access to that, don't throw them out. At the very most, if you need to store them for some reason, just kind of fold them flat carefully, because you can, put them back together with duct tape, and you can turn those into like big building blocks. Your grandkids or the neighbor kids or anybody that you need to entertain can use them to build little houses or anything like that.
That's what I was saying, That's why you were able to put a whole addition onto the house with wine boxes.
I did not. Do not listen to him. I'm just going to cut this podcast right off right now. We're about 1 minute early, and if he's going to be publishing lies about me, then off we go. So, what do you think about that, sir? Are you sorry? He's speechless.
You put me in my place.
Absolutely, I did. Just we value truth here, or as close as we can get to
similar.
We value wine boxes. Anyway, we truly are out of time. So that wasn't, I wasn't cutting you off unduly. So think about your wine boxes. They're better than cereal boxes because those go flat. All right.
You're starting to get to me. It's making me thirsty, so we better sign off.
Okay, and we'll have ourselves a little aperitif. Anyway, thank you for listening. We hope you've enjoyed today's podcast, crazy as it is. And do count your blessings. Take care, everybody. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Right. Yeah, bye-bye.